enlightening, inspirational, powerfully refining, and unapologetically controversial. Conversations with the Royal Empress. The entire world knows the secret of who you are. Now is the time to step into your queendom and become the Royal Empress that you're meant to be. One woman at a time. Conversations with the Royal Empress. Now Akilah, she's the analytical Empress. Hakeemah, she's the Empress that will challenge you. Now, straighten up your crown and be elevated through conversations. Conversations with the Royal Empress.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. This is Akilah, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Hakeemah. And today we are joined by our special guest co-host, Brandy Smart. Brandy has been with us a few times now, so you should remember her. Today we are talking about sororities, Blalck Greek Letter Organizations. What is their purpose, and how do they benefit the community? We're also going to address some of the myths that surround our organizations. And how do organizations in general benefit us? We're going to start with Brandy, who's going to talk to us about joining her sorority.
I just felt like that was a part of having a well-rounded college experience, was to be a part of one of the sororities. And so when I did get into college at that time, it really wasn't a focus of mine. I had gotten a little bit older and I didn't know much about sororities in general before I got to college. So when I got there, actually one of my best friends, she really wanted to be an AK, and she had her family members were AKs, and also I didn't know a lot of women that were a part of any Greek lettered organizations. But my godmother was an AKA. So my frame of reference were AKAs. And so getting into the time where it was time to, start the process, that was where, from going into college and observing the different organizations, I felt like the things that they did were more aligned with who I was, and I was surrounded by a lot of other AKs, actually. So a lot of classes I was taking, a lot of my friends were AKs, and so I just felt like that organization represented who I was and the things that I was interested in, kind of being more interested in the things that they were doing, and, kind of looking up to the girls that were already in a sorority when I got to college. And so that's kind of how I chose that one. Just a number of different things. Just felt like it suited me.
Gotcha. Akilah, would you like to share with the listening audience of what letter organization that you are in, and what made you decide to choose them?
I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and man, what made me decide? You know how long ago that was?
I'm making you go back, and you got to dig in the crates.
Come on now. I don't even really have that conversation anymore about what made me decide. I was listening to Brandy. I guess I had a little bit of a different experience in that, I knew people in the sororities before I got to college, meaning like family members. So interestingly, my first cousin who's an AKA actually threatened me and told me if I came home anything other than an AKA, she'd kill me.
I know.
But fortunately, I'm still breathing. And so fortunately, I'm still breathing. But that was the threat that was made. But I guess the reality of it is that you do, when it comes to the organizations, I personally feel like many of our goals and missions are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it, I mean, just the aspect of community service and, service in general, um, servant leadership, all of that kind of stuff is what I believe that many of our organizations were founded on to begin with. And so oftentimes when people choose, sometimes it has to do with legacy because it's what they've, grown up with and what they've known. Some of it is just what fits their personality when they're in school, what has been presented to them, who's on campus. All of those things are a factor for some people. All four of the Blalck Greek Letter Organizations, sororities, were on my campus. So I had an opportunity to see all of them. And for me, Zeta just fit more with my personality and with what I was looking for, to be perfectly honest with you. I have a tendency to kind of dance to the beat of my own drum. And I kind of felt like I could still do that, but it's still an organization, it's still a sorority. So, there's still certain things that you have to do. It's not like you can just join and you're just supposed to just, be on your own and solo and go against the grain with your organization. So, but that had a lot to do with it for me. I think just in terms of my research, I appreciated the fact that, Zeta was the first sorority to actually charter in Africa. That was important to me. Just some of the social things that they were doing was something that I appreciated. So like we all do many of the same things. And so it's just really what aligns most with you. And so they did.
What I've come from a experience of someone who had, I kind of like you, Akilah. I had an older cousin who's AK, and she threatened. I won't say threatened me, but it was just sort of like, you better not pledge anything else but this, because I spent a lot of my life trying to imitate her because she was 8 years older than me. So when I went to college, I had the idea that's what I'm going to pledge. However, the college I went to was in a city setting, so it really didn't have that. On campus, you couldn't pledge a sorority or fraternity on our school campus. You had to go to a different college that was nearby, another city college, to actually pledge. So the sense of a community for each sorority was not present at my college. So to me, I think that contribute to me not even pledging because there was no sense of presence. You would just see people here and there coming in out of class, or you may see a couple people hanging together, but there was not like the activities that really that in many campuses or like HBCUs where they're actually hosting or demonstrating what they do. So for me, I didn't get a chance to see that. So see that presence. So I'm going to pose a question based on that. If you didn't, how do you think your campus would be if those sororities were not present? What contribution do you feel like the sororities that you selected or the sororities that you did select, what contribution they made on that campus and how they made a difference in the school that you attended?
I'll go first. So I attended, when I pledged, I was attending Grambling State University. And I feel, looking back and being older and then also being in a college environment as an adult, in my, it was at our school, you had to be a certain grade level to pledge, and they had a cycle where they didn't pledge for 2 years. So a lot of the girls that were in the organizations were the upperclassmen, the older girls. Mm-hmm. And for every Greek letter organization, all of them, not just, the AKAs or one specific group, just all of those young ladies that were on campus were an example of how to accomplish the college journey. And they were all involved in a lot of program-based organizations. They were all scholars. They were all, maybe doing research or in different pageants or just really excelling in their college experience and doing a lot of things, whether it was, selling things on campus or organizing events. All the things that they did was something that you kind of wanted to be a part of, and you wanted to share in the sisterhood as well, sharing the bond that they had and the fun that they had, and then, just the accomplishment that they all seemed to have and the confidence that they also had. And they all seemed to kind of, just be put together to a certain extent where you looked up to them. They were the leaders on campus as well, in different senses, whether they were the presidents of certain organizations or they were, just leaders in whatever it is they were involved in. So they were beneficial, I feel, in kind of like a guideline to, how to have an enjoyable, successful college experience.
I would pretty much echo the same thing. The first thought that came to my mind was the leadership roles that our organizations take on campuses. And unlike Brandy, I didn't go to a HBCU. I pledged at a predominantly white institution. So I think on those campuses, it's even more crucial, I think, for students, for Black students, for minority students, because you have a sense of community. And, so it's like you have your own little world, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And you do, and you see those in those organizations at the helm of a lot of organizations, and not just the sorority or fraternities, but other student government. And so there, you had a seat at the table with other organizations as a result of being. So, we had what we call it the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which involved all of the, sororities and fraternities, not just the Blalck Greek Letter Organizations. So it was, so you definitely had a seat at the table, and, and it was a lot of incoming freshmen, they looked up to those in fraternities and sororities because it basically was. It was just like leadership. Sometimes even other student organizations, they would be in other organizations. A lot of them were athletes. A lot of them were, scholars. And I know one of the things that we did on our campus, like Brandy was talking about, was the scholarship aspect. Our GPAs were important. You had to have a specific GPA in order to even join one of the organizations. And they highlighted that. So you had, I know we had a thing where you would see who, out of all of the organizations, who had the highest GPA out of all of the organizations. And I know when I was at my school, it was sorority wise, it was Zeta, and fraternity wise, it was Omega Psi Phi. And many of them were, on the dean's list. I mean, so just that whole academic aspect of things. And, so yeah, you saw the party aspect of things when you come on campus, but you also see that the academics made a difference. And then even today, they go back to the schools. The organizations are still there. So there's still leadership roles that are played out. When you have the reunions and, joining the board of directors and all of that kind of stuff. So you still see that aspect of it. So I don't see how I would have paid attention to student government and those things, but for these organizations, at least not for me, not being at the type of institution that I attended.
I'm floored by it because on the outside, or maybe not even be if you a person who haven't been at a campus where there is a strong Black sorority presence, you may not understand those parameters and how they make a big difference in cultivating Black students whether at a predominantly white institution or at a Black college. So I'm like, wow, I'm really impressed with that, because when I would think sorority or fraternities, the one thing I wouldn't be thinking about is the examples of leadership or having a seat at the table. So I just want to thank you all for shedding light on that, because I'm sure our listeners had no idea of that as well. Like you said, when it comes to campuses and sororities and fraternities, people think parties. That's the first thing they think, or they may think athletes. But being an example on a campus where those in a sorority or fraternity is leaders in different organizations outside of that. So it dispels the myth of this is a clique. If you're in a sorority or fraternity and you decide to get involved in, like you said, student government or other organizations, it sets the tone for this is bigger than just we're just hanging out. This is beyond that. It's bigger than that. And so it raises the consciousness of those people who are around observing and those who are interested in joining. It just raised the bar.
Community service is huge, because when you're young, unless you come from a school that required it or a family who does it, that's kind of your first introduction sometimes to community service. And we did that, fundraising. I remember going to like senior homes and helping with the elders and, blood drives, clothing drives, all sorts of things that we did. And then even understanding how it works to just even to be in an organization in general. Brandy, we had to follow Robert's Rules of Order. So you're 18, 19, 20 years old learning Robert's Rules of Order. Who else is doing that?
Yeah.
Right.
So when you start coming up and you go and you're in grad school or other schools and you are leading organizations, you're not just leading an organization because, it's not a Greek lettered organization once you get to the graduate and the, or terminal degree level. People aren't pledging at that point. Well, other than going into a grad chapter, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's not an undergraduate experience. And I can say that even when I was when I was in law school, running the Black Law Students Association was very different from those of us who had been in Greek lettered organizations and those who had not, because some of them didn't know anything about Robert's Rules of Order or how to actually run a meeting. That's not to suggest that you can't do that by not, joining an organization. We don't want to put that out. Be very careful. But I'm saying that it definitely helped because you held positions. Yes. Great training. And so you do training. Go ahead, Brandy.
No, I was saying that it's a leadership training by very nature of experiencing the organization and being a part of the activities of the organization. You are being trained to be a leader and put in a position to be a leader. And your role is to be of service. Your role is to, participate in initiatives and nonprofit efforts and other training programs to train those outside of the younger generation. And I feel that also touches on where a big part of sisterhood in the community comes in, because we're every layer or every degree is basically helping those that they are able to be leaders of. So at the college student level, at the undergraduate level, I know we had a program at the high school. So there was the Grambling State University, and there was a Grambling High School on campus. So we had programs at the high school, and we did a lot of things within the community with the younger girls. We also did, like the elderly homes and things on campus. And then, just Hurricane Katrina was going on when I was there. So, disaster relief, things like that. But by doing those things at the time, you don't necessarily realize it. But now that I'm older, looking back and what I want to do for those younger than me or for those undergraduate 18, 19-year-olds, that's where my heart is, that age group, and understanding who I was and how my college experience transformed me. And wanting to give back and teach them all the things that I learned from the different programs and organizations that I was in. Yes, just training. You're getting trained while you're in there. You're being trained to train others while you're in there, and it continues and it grows, and it's just amazingly powerful. Community building, strengthening, serving role.
I agree. And mentorship is huge. And so, and that is part of it as well. And I'm sure just like Zeta, AKA also has programs where we have younger girls who are in our auxiliary organizations that we have. And a lot of people don't know that we have that. So we have
and things like that.
Yeah, we have programs for children, please, what I think as young as 4 probably. And, all the way up until they get to college, and they can belong to our auxiliary organization. So that means that they are being mentored, they are being taught community service at an early age, and they're learning what it means to be a part of a sisterhood and what all of that means. So again, it's not just what people think, it's just, they just, that it's fun, and they step and they compete with each other, and we do that, we joke around, and all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we do things together. So you will see joint efforts with Zeta and AKA and Delta and Sigma Gamma Rho. It's, while we may have our separate organizations, there are many community initiatives that we all come together on. And there is even a sisterhood within the sisterhood. So, and that's a reality too. So, so while you may hear us at the step shows cracking jokes on each other and talking about who came first and, and all of that stuff. Because I was going to tease Brandy earlier when she says, I'll go first. I'm like, just like an AKA. But
I love it.
but I'm saying, like, we tease each other like that, but it's still all love, because at the end of the day, we know that the work that we are doing for women and the community at heart, it as a whole, is what we're all striving to do. And quite frankly, we can reach more people together than we do apart. And that's why you'll see many things. You'll see all of us at certain community events. All of our organizations raise money for the March of Dimes for premature births, if I'm not mistaken. So, all of the walks and, the various breast cancer walks, all of that, you're going to see all of us spearheading.
And that's I was thinking about, like, now that I'm a little bit older, and when I was in undergrad or even before, and that's a lot. I think a lot of sometimes people on the outside looking in say, they fight with each other and this, and kind of looking, and it's like, I don't want to be involved in any of that, because I'm just just a love and type of person. But I feel like as a whole, as a divine nine, that we all have a collective mission, and we're all just different components of a piece. So almost in another way of looking at just different ways of light and the different things that different types of rays of light do. So like ultraviolet rays or, sun rays, they all have different qualities and different nutrients that they provide and different things. And when I look at the different organizations, we all are doing the same thing, and honestly also all doing it for the same mission, the same community, the same sisterhood, the same, giving back to the Black community and developing up those that are coming behind us but everyone has their specific initiatives. So
Right.
even if you just take organization and you break it up from Brent, so I do PR. So just my mindset is like, how do you break up like a marketing campaign? You got people that are going to do PR. You got the people that are going to do, maybe research and development. You have people that are going to do, I don't know, writing and write press releases and such. So everybody just has their different roles, and we come together and we serve as one.
Exactly. So, and there's where people will we still will call each other sisters.
Yeah.
Regardless of which organization we're in. And so probably, I think, Hakeemah, you had mentioned before about, using the terminology of Greeks, and when we talk about, well, we're actually Greek letter organizations, but you'll hear certain times people will say a sister Greek. And it really, I think, is just more or less, is just shortened because you don't want to keep saying, I belong to a Blalck Greek Letter Organization. Or sometimes we'll just use the acronym and we'll say
the word is wordy.
Right. So that's really where you hear that when you hear them say Greeks, it's just shortening the long name is all it is. We will say that to one another because there is a sisterhood amongst all of us, because we still have a shared, like you said, we have a shared mission, but we have a shared experience in how our organizations were created and how we join these organizations. And so while all of our requirements may be different, our rituals may be different, it's still a commonality that we have, and there's still a bond that we have. And, which is why, we also got together. I can't remember what year it is, Brandy. You might have to help me out. My history is a little rusty, but, when we formed the National Pan-Atlantic Council, that was all of our organizations that got together and formed that, hence developing, what we have now become, which is the Divine Nine. And that's, the 9 Blalck Greek Letter Organizations that all belong to this one organization that falls under this particular umbrella. So
I like to think of it as, it's almost as you're just an alumni of the university. You all come together, but you all have different majors.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good way of looking at it.
But I think too, in joining a sorority, at least for me, I think that it taught me the importance too of women getting together and forming a sisterhood. It just showed you just how important a sisterhood is and what it really means to be a sisterhood. And there are a lot of people who grow up who don't have, blood sisters, and then they get to feel what it's like to be a part of a sisterhood. One of my line sisters, her mother is in one of our auxiliary groups, because we actually have an auxiliary group as well for women who are not college, who didn't go to college, or who maybe went to college and didn't pledge or didn't finish college. And we have an organization, we have auxiliary groups where they're like the friends of, and they become a part of the sisterhood as well, even though it's under another name. And her mother actually was in that organization before we even pledged. And so I remember her being at one of our state meetings, and she said to us that she was so grateful to Zeta because her daughter didn't have any sisters growing up, but Zeta gave her daughter all of these sisters that have embraced her and, become a part of her family. So you do get it. I mean, it's definitely, to me, it's a beautiful experience. I personally, if I had it to do over again, I would. And I do feel like, that it definitely made a difference in my life, and a difference for the good. It wasn't just about develop thicker skin. I mean, I absolutely did.
Maturity.
Yes, it grows you up. Because again, you're being thrust into positions when you get into these organizations. You just come in and sit on the sidelines and do nothing. You have to roll up your sleeve and actually do work. So while it's great to step, to do your little strolls around the party, trust me, we enjoy doing all of that. But there's a meeting every month where you're talking about how much money you have. You know, what
How
do
much you made on that party?
Say that again?
I said how much you made throwing that party, because it was a business function as well, usually.
Exactly, because the parties were fundraisers. Our parties were fundraisers. They weren't just parties to have parties. They were fundraisers for various missions and various. So you did. So you developed this thing where you had to learn how to work with other people, and that's a reality because you had no choice but to work with someone else. And guess what? You couldn't get mad and take your ball and go home. Because guess what? These women weren't going anywhere. And, you know, many of us, you didn't go through all of that just to say, forget it, you know, and that's a reality. It does. It teaches you how to work in groups. You know, it was funny. I was looking at something the other day and they said, you know, what did working in groups in college teach you? And it said, you know, how to do stuff on my own, how to hate people, how to whatever. But you think about when we're in our organizations, and we were actually forced to work together as a group. So you do learn how to work together as a group, and it's not doing it on your own. And you get into it just like you do with your sisters. We would argue, scream to the top of our lungs, tell somebody they weren't carrying their weight. I mean, every dynamic that you could possibly think of is what you will see when you know, when you see these women behind the scenes.
Team building skills.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And our meetings. I mean, we had actual, when we go to our state meetings, when we go to our regional meetings, when we go to our national meetings, and yes, there's 3 meetings where you know, where you got thousands upon thousands of women that gather together. And there are workshops. There are leadership trainings. When somebody becomes a president of our organization, you're in an organization that has over 100,000 members each. So, you know, you're running an actual organization with that many members, with that many moving parts. And that starts at a very young age. It can. So
on all different age levels because of the branches of it. So you have, you know, the children all the way to the grandparents involved.
You do. And so the sisterhood is phenomenal, and you meet people. And I'll be honest with you, does it help in terms of, like, I have looked at resumes personally when I looked at interns, and if I saw that they belong to not just my sorority, but any organization, the first thought that you have in your mind is, okay, they have some type of organizational skills.
Yeah. A leadership role.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yep. So it does matter. And colleges look at that too. Well, you know what I mean? Like, not undergrad, but we're talking about graduate schools and professional schools. Some of them definitely.
Just like them looking to see if you've been involved in community service, if you've been, you know, involved in scholarship organizations. Like, it's all of that rolled into one.
All of it.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask a question about networking, and you already went into it. I'm like, man, I was going to ask that question. But I got another question, though, because this is, you all probably get tired of this, but people still think this way. Do you remember the movie School Days? And how they had them at odds with each other and bickering and fighting, and it's how they had, it's just the whole concept of how they presented sororities or sisters and sororities, of how, you know, they ain't conscious. What are you all's thoughts on that? Because that is a thought, that if that is a thinking. I'm not saying for everyone, but there's a thinking in the public for those who are not a part of it, that if you're part of a sorority, you're more self-centered. You're not community centered, and you've already dispelled the myth about being self-centered and not being community centered, because you can't be serving the community and be self-centered. You all dispelled the myth, but can you address the myth of if you're a part of sorority, you're not Black centered? So can you really go into that?
I would say that I think that it's a mindset thing. So I can look at society as a whole or the world as a whole and look at how other people behave or observe and analyze something that they are not a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So I can relate it also to a lot of times just how people judge those that go to church or those that don't go to church, how people judge those that, go to college or didn't go to college. And so a lot of that type of response or those type of opinions are rooted in understanding that lacks understanding. So a lot of times people, they judge what they don't know, and they try to just develop their own understanding based off of what they see in their level of understanding or knowledge about the organizations. A lot of people don't, they don't research things before they make a judgment. They don't, they have their different reasons for feeling like they don't want to be a part of something that they assume is a negative quality or concept. But a lot of times, again, I say, like, it's just consciousness level of understanding, maturity. So a lot of, just brain development at younger ages also contributes to looking at something that looks like work and looking at something that looks like being selfish or selfish contributes to your understanding of it. And then you also have those that, so what you were mentioning a little bit earlier is like how there is fighting amongst sisters. You're like you fight with your regular sisters sometimes, just having disagreements, but they don't realize from the outside looking in that, we are loyal to one another and we are working collectively and we're just having disagreement. And it's healthy to have disagreements and be able to work through those things. That's a level of, maturity and skill building and family oriented behavior. Like, it's natural to have conflict. Conflict is healthy because you have to work through problems with other people. And so just on the outside looking in, I feel like a lot of times people make judgments that are just negative and just, because it's something that they don't feel like they want to be aligned to, that they just kind of trash it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just like common human behavior. If they're not a part of it or something that is not their vibe, because of course, everything isn't for everyone. It just may not be, just might not be your path. Honestly, it's like, I love all people, and whatever you feel like you want to do, if you're going to college, do what is best for you. If you might want to, be in the academic clubs and based on your major and things like that. And that's all great and wonderful. But a lot of times we focus as a whole, just as a human race, we focus a lot more on what is said by the naysayers and the ones that are complaining the loudest and, most aggressive of what they're saying. And a lot of times the things that they're saying are not valid and just judgments and negative.
Yes. And to say that that people are not conscious is kind of laughable. Huey P. Newton is a member of Phi Beta Sigma. He started the Black Panther Party. You gonna tell me Huey wasn't conscious?
See, I love it. But that's what people think, right?
Martin Luther King Jr. was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. He didn't, come on now. A. Philip Randolph, a member of Phi Beta Sigma. Ida B. Wells. So we can continue to list people who had a level of consciousness, who were leaders, right? So I think that that's definitely a myth to suggest somehow that because somebody joins a Greek lettered organization that they lack a level of consciousness when you have well-known leaders who were also members of these organizations. So it's unfair to say that. Now, the reality of it is that these are memberships with a large number of people who come from every walk of life. So are there people who belong to Greek lettered organizations who lack consciousness? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And are there those who are straight freedom fighters? Absolutely. And do sometimes the two conflict within the organizations? Absolutely. Because just like she said, Brandy just got through talking about the fact that, yeah, we don't always agree on everything politically, socially, of how things are supposed to happen. So, that is a reality, but you can't base what someone individually does on a whole organization. And what our organizations were founded on, the principles that our organizations were founded on. Not everybody lives up to those principles who belong to the organization. People are people. That's just the reality. But yes, but I think that that's definitely not an informed opinion. You have to meet people and know that that's just simply not the case. So,
yeah. And playful, loving teasing being interpreted as, just internal conflict when it's, just teasing and playful and all love.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and let's be real, the Black community in general, darn well growing up playing the dozen. is like a rite of passage in the Black community. So do you really think that the organizations are not going to do it? Because in reality, isn't that what we're technically doing when we tease each other and make jokes or say stuff? You're playing the dozens. It's no different than what many people do, period.
Yeah, my kids are doing it now.
See?
I'm like, look at John.
That is too funny. But I mean, it's so true how you mentioned it, Brandy, about how people will make comments or sit back and analyze an organization or just anything they're not a part of. I had a person, and it's funny because I remember in college having this conversation. It was a group of quote unquote conscious people. I throw my air quotes out there. And then you had those who were part of Black organizations, like AKs or Deltas or Omegas, etc. And then you had those who were part of Masonic order, and it was this. Then you had those people who weren't part of any of things saying, "I'm too conscious to be a part of those groups." And so somehow so often, and when you get in certain groups where people have conversation, people there are people who believe that to become a part of an organization that you're losing a part of yourself, that you're losing yourself. And I remember contributing to that conversation, like, that's not true. Just because you join an organization doesn't take away from you. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose your own personal identity. And so often people feel like, well, I don't want to lose my identity, so I'm not going to get a part of the group. But they don't understand that being a part of a group contributes to the development of your identity. And a lot of people understand that when you put yourself in an environment with a lot of people who are different from you, that's where there's growth and development. Whether these people grew up in a different state, or people of just different financial statuses put together, or just different philosophies, that's where the growth and development come from. And so often people feel like, oh, I'm gonna lose myself if I join an organization. So I mean, what are you all thoughts on that?
Well, I already told you that I joined. I absolutely dance to the beat of my own drum. So
oh yeah, see, I know you. You know what I mean? But,
yeah. So the whole losing yourself thing was just not. Now, here's a reality. So we don't want to pretend like certain things don't happen. Okay, there are people who don't have an identity themselves in general. And so sometimes they're attracted to organizations because that's how they develop an identity for themselves. So I don't know that they lose themselves, or if they find something to try to define themselves, if that makes any sense. Then there are those who, you know, if and some join because they just want to be a part of something, and not necessarily because they need a clique, but I just want to be a part of something. Sometimes it's just I want to be a part of something that's bigger than what I feel that I am right now.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. So because they see these group of people doing this thing, and it's like, well, I would like to be a part of that, because this is not something that you can really do on your own. You know, sometimes there are things that take a group of people to do in order for it to work the way that it needs to work. But yeah, now, are there some people who are one way, and then once they join an organization, they now feel like they're better than, or they, you know, they change? It absolutely happens. I've seen that happen as well.
Well,
It
then
doesn't.
that's the same with jobs, though. I mean, a person get a job
Right.
title and do the same thing, so you can't
Exactly.
fault
And
the
what I'm saying,
organization.
right? You see this human behavior. I used to tell people that sorority and fraternity life on campus was really just a small look at life in the big world. And it was just like this way of looking. It was almost like this, because sometimes there's a celebrity status that's attached sometimes to members of these organizations, and so they are looked at and scrutinized more because they tend to be more known. It's the same thing we do to people in general society when everybody knows who they are. They're scrutinized more. They're analyzed more. Everything that they do, they're put under this microscope. And that's the exact same thing that happens, is just on a smaller scale because we're on college campuses. But as I said, I dance to the beat of my own drum. So me joining an organization had nothing to do with that. In fact, as soon as I pledged, I continued to hang with the exact same people that I was hanging with before I joined the organization. And, you know, people used to, like, you know, I had a few sorority sisters sometimes that said, like, well, man, you know, you did pledge. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I mean, I love y'all, but, you know, these were the people that I was with. So I'm not going to turn away from them because, you know, I'm still going to be me. But I laughed because there was a question in my interview that they asked me, and to this day I always say, well, now they the ones let me get into sorority after I answered the question. They asked me to describe myself in one word, and I said unorthodox. So I already told you.
That you are unorthodox, which is a good thing, you know.
And that was over 20 years ago.
It was like, yeah, put her down. We need somebody to think outside the box.
So I know that for me, I struggled with that after I became a part of the organization, because I didn't like, it's as if I didn't have as much information or understanding of the different judgments, or, you know, a lot of different things that people think about the different organizations and stuff. I didn't really have that going into college. So after I pledged, I got an interesting response to people thinking I was different, or treating me different, or assuming I was a certain way. And it made it so where I didn't want to really tell anybody that I was. Like, if I would go outside of campus or in different places, it wasn't something I was yelling from the rooftops. You know, if I had on a shirt or something like that, you know, fine, but it wasn't something I felt like I needed to lead with on who I am as a human being, or what my personality is like, or what my, you know, I didn't necessarily tell people that in describing myself. It's a lot of times something that'll come up in conversation, or people will, you know, just find out through different, you know, different things about, you know, interacting with me. So I never wanted to define myself or think that I would lose myself by being a part of an organization, because I have always been a part of different organizations, even as a child, you know, elementary school through, you know, high school. I was on, you know, some of the science competition team, or, I went to this school, and, I moved around a lot, so I may be from this city, and the different things that people, assume about you based on something. It kind of bothered me. Like, I didn't like the fact that people started, actually, it's people start changing around you because now they have a different opinion of you, and whatever their opinion of the organization that you're now in, now that shapes their opinion of you. They're reshaping your identity for themselves. And a lot of times not giving you a chance to, or not giving themselves a chance to honestly get to know you as just a human being. And I don't like being defined in any way. I like for people to really, really get to the heart of me and really get to know me. And then if you feel like you have, an observation that you can make, then fine. But judging me based on my race or where I'm from or what college I went to or what I do for a living or the fact that I'm a mother or whatever it is, I just, it makes me cringe. And I feel like it's a problem to me with just another human behavior thing where a lot is projected onto you because people have their own fears or feelings, or they don't think that they think they would get lost, or that's what their opinion of other people is, or I don't, that's just not the case. People are human, people are individuals. At the end of the day, we're, a group of with college educated women that want to work together to do good things for the community and all of those. If that's something that's now going to be a part of my identity, then I'll wear it, and I'll wear it proudly. But to wear your negative opinions is not something that I'm interested in doing.
We agree wholeheartedly on that one, Brandy. As she was speaking, I'm like, exactly. Yeah, because that's all it is. It's projection oftentimes. So yeah, I just don't understand sometimes, but it's just human behavior, and we get it.
And to me, it was also like, just I said, it affected me more so after, because it was kind of something that I had to, overcome, to where people have these, honestly, sometimes just disrespectful judgments of you. People say, you think you're better than me, or you think this, or you think this. Like, honestly, I don't think any of that. And it makes me uncomfortable now just telling you certain things about myself. Like, I can't communicate just my life and, things that I'm a part of or things that I like to do because of your, toxic opinion, honestly.
And many of us probably did belong to organizations as children. Like you said, I know, please, I was a Girl Scout.
Yes, I was a Girl Scout too.
Right, that's a sisterhood. So, I think
I was a brownie. I was a brownie.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Two friends,
the brownies was before
one is silver and the other's gold. So
remember the brownie was before Girl Scout. When you use the brownie,
the brownies are like the kindergarten age, first grade girl. There's levels. So daisies are the babies; those are the kindergartners, and then you have brownies. And when you get to like third grade, you become a Girl Scout, and then there's levels and degrees. Like you're a cadet in high school.
Then you become a cadet. Yeah.
Yeah, I was all of those except for cadet. I didn't get to that level, but I was brownie and Girl Scout. It's amazing in society now, and we've stressed on this topic how important it is to be a part of an organization and the benefit of being an organization. Now you don't see the promotion or the push for young children to be involved in organizations like it used to be.
You mean like Girl Scouts and?
There's a different community programs. I know that I see as an adult now with children and looking for these programs to put my children in. I'm seeing that because I actually tried to, I signed up to be a Girl Scout leader because my daughter's school didn't have a Girl Scouts program. And I'm realizing that so much, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings on the planet, and people are choosing to do different things. And a lot of times we look at organizations or institutions as somehow operating outside of the individual person. And so I just realized that there were not there was not an abundance of parents and people of age volunteering or, just becoming a part of these programs. Because when I did try to, volunteer and be a Girl Scout leader, I had to have people help me. It wasn't something that, by the laws of the organization, I could do alone. And I couldn't really find anybody that wanted to volunteer with me. That was hard to do. So a lot of the programs that exist, I see, because that's such a passion to me, because I realize how much it saved me being a part of these different programs at all the different levels in my education, that I want to make sure that those opportunities are there for other children. But it's something that I think that, for one, people don't know about a lot of the organizations. People don't, choose to necessarily maybe do the research to discover them. And then sometimes they're just not promoted properly. They don't necessarily have those skills to get the word out, or they don't have the funding to me, or just different neighborhoods I'm realizing too as I get older. But it's kind of heartbreaking to me that the kids now may not have as much, or maybe we just don't, it's just changed so much, the system of it all.
It's the me and the Me Too and the iPhone generation. It's all about them. But let me get to our challenges, because I want to challenge listeners. All right, now I got some challenges here. One of my first challenges is, why don't you financially support these organizations, our Black Letter organizations? They do a lot of community work, and I'm sure financially supporting them will help them further the mission. So look to support them financially. Also, get to a friendly competition with our letter organizations. They in the community doing work. You get out there and do some work. You get out there in the Blalck Greek Letter Organization. Get out there and outwork them. Get out there and say, hey, I'm out here for some friendly competition. I'm motivated by the fact that you out here working in the community, and I'm out here too. That's what we need to be doing. Seeing our sisters out there working in the community, that should inspire us who are not a part of the organizations to actually want to do the same type of work. Lastly, I'm going to say join the organization. I'm not in a Black Letter organization. Not saying that once you get out of undergrad, you can't. There are grad chapters that you can join, but that's something I can't speak on. I'm going to tell you, do your research. But I am part of the Eastern Star organization, and it's wonderful. It's a great sisterhood. You could be a part of that. I'm also a part of the MGT, baby, the Muslim Girls in Training. A member of the Nation of Islam, a great sisterhood. There are so many sisterhoods in the community that you can get a part of, that you can get in there and you can join, and you can work on developing your sisterhood. You can work on developing your leadership skills, your training skills. You can also work on getting with them so that you can work in the community and better your community. So those are my challenges for our listening audience. So Brandy, you got any last words? And also let everyone know that how they can reach out to you and how they can contact you.
Well, people can reach out to me through Instagram at Miss BN Smart, or on Facebook at Miss BN Smart, or medium.com at Miss BN Smart. And from there, you can email me if necessary, contact me in any way. And my last words would be, I'm just grateful to be able to share what my experiences are, and to be able to just give back in this way that I am right now. And I hope that it inspires others to just be a part of the marathon and carrying the torch and being a light to those that follow us and look up to us, and just being there in support of ourselves and our communities.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right, I want to thank all our Black sorority letters. Thank you for all the work that you've done in the community. I also want to thank you, because I know I got some listeners that's part of the sororities. We know we got some listeners. So thank you for always tuning in and supporting us every week. We look forward to seeing you next week on Conversations with the Royal Empress.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. Tune in next week for another enlightening conversation. For more information on the Royal Empress, please visit the website royalempress.org. You can also follow the Royal Empress on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Conversations with the Royal Empress is a subsidiary of the Royal Empress Organization. All rights reserved.